Hi everyone, it's Linda from LyndaCreates, and I'm excited to have part 10 of the Stitch Notebook, and it is showing how I put together a page, my first page for the notebook. So let me show you how I made this. I was digging through my stash and found a 100% cotton white sheet, older one, so I'm going to cut some pages out of this. So here is a concise measurement of all the pieces you need per page. Okay, so the page itself, you would cut 16 and a half inches wide by 11 inches high, and then it folds to it folds to 8 1/4 inches wide by 11 inches high. So this would make up 1 or 2 pages. 1, 2. Okay, so that's to make the 2 pages. And then for the art, I cut a piece of flannel, and this is going to be the backing for the art itself that I'm going to apply to it. And sorry, it's white on white, hard to see, but it is 7, here we go again, 7 1/4 inches wide by 10 1/4 inches high. So it gives you about 1/4 of an inch border on these 3 sides, but it gives you about 1/2 inch on this side because this is the part that will be sewn into the edging. Okay, the edging is the name for the piece with the 3 grommet holes. Okay, so that's the 2 pieces. When you do the back side, you would need another piece, of course, you would have another piece of art, and you don't need it to be this particular size. You can make it come out and over if you want. You can make it a partial of it. You can do whatever you want with the art. If you're going to make art as a separate piece, this is roughly the size you can, maximum size to fit, leaving the edge here for sewing in. Now, the 2 other pieces you need, and this is called the edging. This is where the grommets go into. Now this piece, the edging, is cut to 4 1/4 inches wide by 11 inches high. Okay, so 4 1/4 wide by 11 inches high, and then it is folded to be 2 1/8 inches wide by 11 inches high. So that is the edging. This is where you'll put the grommets into. Please note, you don't have to cut this. Actually, the page, you don't have to cut that in white fabric either. You can do it in any color. If you know what art you're going to attach to it, maybe you do the edging in a similar color or a fabric that matches it better. So it's just, these are just the patterns to know about, and you could change it up however you want. The other thing you need is a piece of interfacing, and this is 1 1/8 inches wide by 11 inches long, and this is the piece that goes inside here, and it should be a medium weight, and you need it doesn't need to be a fused piece. It can be a sew-in piece because once you add the grommets, it'll stay in place. Those are the 4 pieces you need to make each page. It can vary. You might not want to put a backing on your art. You may have art that you already want to just stitch down to this page. So these are the basic measurements if you're going to make pages ahead of time, edgings ahead of time. If you're going to come in and add your own art, you might even want to stitch on the page itself. Don't know. So these are just basic dimensions to start with. Then you just can go as wild and free as you want to make your own stitch notebook pages. And then you're going to have a little bit of just fabric here, which is the important part when we get down to it. So we're going to fold it over. I have my piece of paper again, and I measured in 1 inch from the side. Okay. Now, the thing is, you can see that the hole is a little close to the left-hand side. I want to center that a little bit more. We have actually 1 1/8 inch of the interfacing in there. By measuring off 1 inch, I can now cut off and use this as my guide. And you'll see one side is narrower and one side's wider. You want to rotate this and put the wider side next to the fold. Okay. Now you may need at this point to adjust your pins because you don't want them to be where you're going to be having the circles. You could use a friction pen or a water marker if you want. And I'm just going to indicate the circle where the holes are going to go. Okay, and you want to save that. You could always make another one, but so now I have 3 holes. It should be, you can look at it through the light, and it should be centered in the interfacing in there. Okay, now comes the fun part of actually making the holes. So I have my fabric. I have a little self-healing cutting mat. Just, you could use a larger one. I just happen to have a small one that fits in the camera great. This is a grommet setup. Okay. You start, it comes with a base here. You get it for the specific size you want. This is the hole punch. It has a blade on the end of it. This is the setter punch. Little hammer. Now, when you buy this, the grommet setter, it comes with a small pack of grommets. You're limited in the color. I believe it just comes in the silver tone. I also bought an extra pack of this, what did they call it, gunmetal gray? Yes, gunmetal gray, which I thought had a nicer vintage look for my book. Your preference. This is size, these grommets are size 5/16 of an inch, which is equivalent to also 8 millimeters. So some sites will say the millimeters, some sites will say the inches. So it's 5/16 of an inch is the openings here, and the punch and setter. What you want to do first is we're going to punch this, and now we have that circle drawn there. We can just set this right down on it. Now, I'm going to cut the sound because it might be really loud. Okay, yeah, that was loud. So it took, I don't know, a few punches, but it did make the hole. So again, I'm going to turn down the sound and finish making the other punches, the other hole. Okay, that was loud. And I do recommend protecting your table because it will punch through it if you don't. Okay, somewhere in here, oh, there they are. This set, oh, comes with the, they call them washers. So the shallow piece is called a washer. Okay. So you take the grommet itself, which has the neck on it, and you set that in place. Want to center it. Now you want the pretty side, or the facing downwards on top of that neck. And you want to make sure it doesn't move around. And then when you put the washer on it, you want the pretty side up. Pretty side being that it has a convex curve. Okay, and the trick is to keep it in place. Okay, now, oops, let me do this. This is a setting tool. This doesn't have the sharp edges. It just it comes to a cone-shaped tip, and that goes in there. And you kind of wiggle it around to make sure it's holding in place. Okay, I'm going to turn the sound down or sound off again to avoid the loud noise. So after much banging around, it really is noisy, I have to admit. But the thing was, they have grommet setters that are like pliers that you just punch together. I don't have the hand strength for that, so I have to use the hammer version. I don't know, maybe the plier version is made so that it's easier to punch, but I wanted to be able to do it myself and not rely on someone else to help me with it. So I went with the hammering version, and it worked out great. Look at the grommets. And I like the darker color. Okay, so now I have my stitch notebook. So this, if all goes right, fits in there. Which now you may ask, so what? Okay, so now when I have the pages, okay, so imagine this 11 by 17 sheet. And I'm kind of using this edge, let me move this up a little bit, this edge as my guide, because I want it to go out as far as I can. But you can see how that's going to work. This will be my page front and back. And again, because it's not attached to anything, I can keep working on it independently and then attach the pieces to it as I go. So as an example of what a stitch notebook page would be so good for is when you have finished art. This was my Stitcher stamp embroidery. The stamp itself was called Embroidery by Tim Holtz. So I had done a project earlier, and you could watch it. I'll put a link to the video below. I use some alcohol inks to do a little bit of color in the background, and I stamped the stamp itself on here, and then I went back in and stitched it, and it's basically built on a stretched canvas frame, and you can hang it up, but I wanted to do something else with it. So this is where the Stitch Notebook comes in real handy, because you could frame this, you can hang it up, whatever, but I want to make it into a piece of art for my notebook. So I'm going to go in and remove all the staples first. So I'll just have a piece of art on canvas. Okay, so I have all the staples off. So now the whole piece just comes off the board or the frame, and what I'm left with is a piece of fabric with stitching on it, which is exactly what I need. So here's my artwork piece. This is just white flannel, and I have plenty of room to work with. I'm going to try to, I don't know if you can see the background in there, and I've pulled out some fabric and trim that I've had, or I selected, and there's an awful lot of white, so I do want to mute down the white a bit. And this is a fabric I just recently thrifted. It was actually a freebie. It was just so gorgeous. Look at that, isn't that pretty? So something like that, not sure yet. And this, okay, gotta show you this. This was used to tie up a bundle of fabric that came in the free bin. Originally, I didn't like the color and didn't know what I'd ever use it for, but I can see it down here as a beautiful piece of muted background, perfect for that. And I'm thinking I'll cut another piece of this beige background, and put it along the top. I have some, let me show you, I have some old creamy colored lace that is of flowers, and I thought it would look really pretty up here. So go across there with this as the background. Oh, here. Actually, I might use this fabric. This is upholstery fabric, but it's in a nice neutral color, so it might go right there. So something like that. I don't have a lot of edge on this side, but I do have, this is old ribbon I found in the stash from my mother's sewing basket. Okay, it's not that old, let's put it that way. So I'm thinking something like that. And then I have, this came in the thrift bag also, and it's a bit of toile. This was just a scrap of it, and it was bright white and bright pink, and it didn't work for me. So I tea-dyed it and muted it, which I think works a lot better. It, in fact, is still a little damp, but I'm thinking something like that with a little bit of slow stitching. But you can see it has become more interesting by doing this. No, I like this side better. And I could add a little stitching on these pieces as well. Let me go ahead and start. I'm going to cut a piece here first. but that's where that's going to go. Here's what I could do. Just as a side note, I could take this out further. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take it out further so when I do the edging piece, it could either go in front of the edging or, wait a minute, okay, so the edging is going to come about here on this. So I could either take the edging, actually, I'm going to take the edging out to there, or take this out to here, and when I attach it to the edging, okay, so let me do it kind of close there. Now this is a piece of upholstery fabric, kind of shiny, so I'm not thrilled with it, but I think it will work really well up there along the top. Oh, I know, I need a little more vertical here. Ah. Do something like that. And then do the piece across here. Okay. So I'm going to have this go across there. And I was hoping to use this lace across the top. I need something there. So all I have left is my toile. And, oh, hold on. I got plenty more to do. My vintage ribbon. I'm going to give prominence to this ribbon because it is meaningful to me, since it's from my mom. This and then this piece was just tying something up, but now that I see it, it's just perfect for this. And this is okay, that's okay. Do I have anything else I need to add to this? Oh, I know what. Okay, let me something like that, but I'm going to go dig through my button stash because I would love to add some buttons to this. I'm thinking something like this, maybe two creamy colored buttons and one green and then one pink. And I wanted to share a funny button story, vintage button story with everyone. So I have been thrifting for years now, and I always collected buttons whenever I would find them at an estate sale. So I had tons of buttons, 15 plus pounds of buttons to be exact. So I pulled out all the ones that I could tell were Bakelite, glass, bone, shell, or just the fun vintage plastic buttons. things that were just unique. So I pulled all those out, and that's how I know I had 15 pounds of buttons that were a little more common. They were old, but they were more common. So I actually donated that to Remainders, the thrift craft store in Pasadena. I don't know what they did with it. They probably are still gobsmacked that someone had 15 pounds of vintage buttons. Anyway, I need to show, and I shared this once before, but this is what remains, or partial remains, of the vintage buttons that I did keep. I know this isn't all of them because I know I have hundreds of mother of pearl, of glass buttons, of Bakelite. I don't think my Bakelite buttons are actually in here. I sorted them out and they're somewhere. So I don't think I need any buttons for a long time. And as I was digging through to find buttons for this, I was thinking, if I can't find a button that works for this, I need to just stop, because there are tons and tons. Anyway, I'm kind of thinking something like that. So that is my button story. But I can go ahead and start stitching it down. I think I need to trim it first. I will trim this white piece so that I have, again, a visual cue as to where I'm going. And some of these longer pieces, okay, I had moved this up because I wanted the buttons down here and I didn't want to put it in front of that, so I'm okay there. Yeah, that's really the only piece that I have a lot of overhang. So now I'm going to cut it down to match the flannel, to make sure, again, I'm going in straight lines visually. I'm going to start stitching things down with my giant ball of ecru crochet cotton that I thrifted. I kind of want this to be a documentary about how many years it will take for me to work through this ball. I mean, it is about an inch, easily an inch thick of crochet cotton. Very nice, very thin. I think it'll be easy to stitch with. So I just started the slow stitching part of it, and I just wanted to show I'm doing a running stitch, and I'm going to stitch down all the pieces. I'm avoiding the outer edge because I'm going to slow stitch that down into the notebook page. So, and I'm avoiding also stitching along the left hand side because I have to slow stitch this down as well to the notebook. I've stitched down all the major pieces of fabric. I'm going to sew using ecru color or off-white colored thread. I'm going to sew down this ribbon because it is so fine. I'm going to do invisible stitching on this ribbon. Basically, the stitch is tiny on top, so you hardly see it, but the travel part in back is longer. I did some embroidery on these flowers here, and I'll come back and stitch more when I put it onto the edging. But right now, I think to tie things together, I'm going to do some slow stitching across here, just to bring this background or the main pattern into the background art, so they don't look like they're two separate pieces, which they are, but I don't want it to look like that. And then after I do that, everything else is stitched down where it needs to be. So really, I'm just going to do a little slow stitching and then, or acanthus stitching, and then I'm going to be able to attach it to the page. Okay, so this is the exciting part to me. I have the page, I have the edging, And here is the first piece of art, and it's going to go about 1/4 of an inch from this side, and I can stitch it down. Now, slightly behind, lace goes in front, fabric goes in front. So what I can do, stitch it down onto the front part of this page. I won't stitch along this side at all. I'll just stitch around these 3 sides to get it attached to the page, and then when it's ready to be attached, like I have artwork for the back side and the front's ready, that's when we'll attach all of this to the page or to the binder. Okay, this is where you have to be a little careful that you're not pinning it to both the front and back page. And the other nice thing about doing it this way is this is the first finished page, but later on I may want to do another page in front of it. Well, it's a 3-ring binder. I could keep inserting pages as I go. So it's just kind of a really fun way to do this. Oh, and can you see the canthus stitching I did up here? So I did it from kind of staggered there all the way across. So it kind of ties it into the artwork or into the backing a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to start stitching it to the page. I'm just doing a small running stitch. Just keep stitching around the edge. So I hope you enjoyed that and saw how easy it is to make the Stitch Notebook. Just a few pieces to put together, and then what a great way to showcase your pieces, and it gives you more things to do with it. So many variations that you can do. You can do up this fabric in a different color. You could have stitch onto pieces there. There is just so much. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe and give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Leave a comment. I love to hear what you guys think of this. And, oh, I didn't finish the buttons yet, but, oops. But I'd love to hear your comments, and stay tuned. I'm going to do more pages for this and some other projects, but this is the end of the Stitch Notebook series, because now the art that I do, if I want to, I can put it into this book. It just continues on. It's just a place to showcase everything and do some variations. Thanks for following along. I hope you enjoyed that. And check out my website, LyndaCreates.com. That's Linda with the Y. And see what other fun things that I've done. I will see you in my next video. Bye.